Welcome and thank you for joining us on the BRICS Africa channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so we understand that there are continued humanitarian law violations on the continent currently, particularly in the Congo and the Sudan. Can you share with us a little bit more about what has been happening recently and what has been the experience of the ICRC?
So first and foremost, let me say that the 50 active armed conflicts across Africa leave a humanitarian stain on humanity, simply put, because of the needs that they generate. We're talking about 38 million displaced people, meaning 38 million people uprooted from their homes and living either in a city or in a displacement camp. And with that, you can add a large number or millions of refugees, that meaning that have left their countries. So the general situation in many countries in Africa, over 20 are living a situation of war. Out of the two that you mentioned, Sudan and DRC, combined, we're talking about the worst humanitarian crisis across the planet. And in Sudan, more specifically, with 13 million displaced and a large number of people in need of food, water, shelter, the basic needs, we can say that we are in a humanitarian catastrophe. And again, across Africa, you would find similar situations, not reported on, like in the Central African Republic, in Somalia, in other countries in the north of Mozambique, and again, the Sahel region that witnesses, again, effects of armed conflict.
Thank you so much. And can you tell us more about the kind of operational challenges that you have been encountering in more recent times?
Great. So, well, first and foremost, humanitarian action requires to be on the front lines, next to the local Red Cross, Red Crescent, next to the communities, but also next to those we're trying to help. So, with that, it inherently exposes our colleagues on the ground to security risks. That's the first impediment, I would say. It's the lack of security guarantees by the warring parties. That, again, is a violation of international law. Not allowing humanitarian actors to be on the ground is a major violation. That's, I think, the first one, which then entails, unfortunately, harm to our colleagues. Like in Sudan, where we lost 4 colleagues, and I would say a large number of Red Cross and Red Crescent movement partners have lost their lives. Only in 2025, we've lost 25 colleagues on front lines and on the line of duty. And the other one is indeed a lack of acceptance sometimes of our role, meaning the ability to work on both ends of the front line is sometimes problematic for many states or non-state owned groups to be able to function, to be able to operate and be where the people need us most, not where it suits that authority or the other. And hence that's another impediment. And I would say the third is one of resources. To be able to mount humanitarian operation, you would require enough resources, enough human resources, but also funds. And in today's contracted funding for humanitarian and development purposes, we find ourselves in a difficult situation. On one side, there are growing humanitarian needs because there are a larger number of armed conflicts across the world, and specifically wars in Africa, but then the resources are extremely limited to be able to respond. When in a country like Sudan, you have more than 13 million people. Only in the last year, I would say there are 1.5 million, only in the last few months, 1.5 million have been displaced out of the North Darfur or in the Kordofan regions. The ability of organizations like the ICRC, but I would also add the United Nations and so many others, are quite limited. So to be able to respond to such crises is in itself a difficulty and an obstacle. Hence, I just stated only 3 obstacles that are unfortunately so typical to our humanitarian environment or the environment in which we work in. Hence, security and resources are needed to be able to do our job.
Thank you so much. Now, we understand that in order to achieve peace and security on the continent and elsewhere in the world, solidarity is needed by all countries. With your visit in Cape Town currently and the multiple engagements you've been having with diplomats and other embassies, what kind of support are you seeking from these diplomats, and where do you see their support going in the near future?
In fact, the main purpose, as you said, the main purpose of visit to Cape Town was indeed to engage in such an important week with decision makers, but also with state authorities on, first and foremost, the humanitarian situation as exposed by the ICRC and witnessed by our representatives on the ground. It's really to be able to transmit what people in Africa specifically are enduring, and I wouldn't say Africa as a whole, only those countries that are affected by war and how they're living the atrocities on a daily basis. The second part is indeed to seek financial but also political support. As a state member to the Geneva Conventions, as a high contracting party, South Africa has been indeed quite generous, and we're looking into even more support in situations of armed conflict to support and help the International Committee of the Red Cross, but also the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement as a whole. And the second part, as I said, is the political support to be able to influence others. The Geneva Conventions don't only put obligations on the state, but it also asks the community of states to show solidarity when a war erupts, in order for the belligerents, for the weapon bearers to respect the Geneva Conventions, to respect the fundamental principles in which the dignity of people is preserved and their life is saved. And hence, we've seen how the Pretoria Agreement basically ended the hostilities in the north of Ethiopia. We're really looking into continuing our partnership, which is now long-standing, quite mature, and exchanging notes on how can we improve the state of implementation of the Geneva Conventions. How, as South Africa, one of the 6 founding members of an initiative that was launched by the ICRC president to bring together countries, meaning high contracting parties, states, that have signed the Geneva Conventions, and to see how can we galvanize more political support in a world that is losing its grip on respect of international law and indeed on the respect of people, lives and livelihoods. And hence, we look really forward, again, with South Africa to see that more states can join this initiative that would hopefully culminate in an event at the end of the year with indeed South Africa's support.
All right. Staying with peace and security on the continent, what do you think is the role of the International Committee of the Red Cross in supporting transitional justice initiatives?
You know, the heart of transitional justice is indeed the legality around which wars are fought, or the legal frameworks around the wars or the situations of enduring violence that then brings the society to decide to open all the files of the past in order to charter a better way for the future. And that is best achieved when the Geneva Conventions are truly applied. When a detainee is truly treated as a human being, he or she will be back to the society and as an active member seeking a road towards peace. And therefore, the ICRC has usually been an advisor to states or entities that would require any support on the legal framework around the laws pursuant to transitional justice or on the actual implementation, without taking any sides, without losing our neutrality or impartiality, and without being part of the process. That's usually a legal, a human, a societal, but also a legal, political process in which states and belligerents engage with. And obviously we're there to support in a post-conflict situation, not with our food, water, and health distribution, but really ensuring that whatever comes out of a war is treated correctly. But again, the leadership required is by the belligerents, not by the ICRC.
Thank you so much. And could you tell us, maybe give us a glimpse into what the diplomats are saying and the kind of support they are pledging, if there is any allegiance that they are pledging?
Well, generally speaking, all our donors have committed, part of our donor support group have committed indeed to supporting the ICRC in its field operations, but also supporting the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement as a whole. Now, in the last couple of days, we're hearing really words of solidarity and support, be that translated in financial terms, but also, as I said, in political terms. The world today is in deep need, as we see around us, of political processes, of peace processes, of mediations, of ceasefires, and these are only done by those who have a decision-making power, not by the ICRC, not by a UN staffer, not by a Red Cross volunteer on the ground. It's really by those who have a decision-making capacity. And the ambassadors are indeed representatives of their countries. They are engagers here in South Africa for the peace and security agenda at the level of the SADC, but also at the level of the African Union, which we're also very proud to partner with and see that concrete solutions are found for indeed those very complex situations. But again, I repeat, the essence of our engagement and the message we always send to diplomats is you can always help us by making sure that your voice is heard to support those voices on the ground, those who have not even a capacity to say what they feel, to say that they're living in danger. And it's really up to us as messengers of humanity with the political entities that are willing and able to change the course of armed conflicts to truly bring positive change to those living the horrors of a war. Be that in Sudan, again, the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, be that in the east of DRC, in Somalia, where people are living a very difficult drought this year, that in addition to all the other impediments that they live on a daily basis. And I can list a few other countries that unfortunately are in the same situation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Youssef, for joining us on the BRICS Africa channel. It has been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much.